Okay, thanks, Jeremy. Not easy after all these speakers, and I'm frantically making notes to just get some of the key points out of that and the thoughts. You know, when I had the pleasure to meet Simon Perez just before he passed on, and the reason I wanted to meet him is because there are a few people in the world like Desmond Tutu or Simon Perez or Kofi Annan. They were all in the 80s or 90s, but they were appealing to all generations. A little bit like Mick Jagger, you know, you see 3 generations or soon 4 generations if you go to a concert. But unlike licking your cheek, they were actually improving the world. And it was fascinating to me what actually drove these people to have that appeal across all these generations. And he said something very simple. He said, and by the way, we had great discussions about tech in Israel at levels that I didn't even understand, some of these companies, what they were working on, but he was actively explaining it. And he said very simple, he said, Paul, when the list of things you have to do is longer than the things you have done, you are young. And I think that is true for all of us. So don't get disparaged, but the list of things we have to do, also in the food area, will always be longer, hopefully, than the list of things we have done. This is a life mission you're all on. This is not a 5-year thing, check the box and I'll do something else. Now, what is clear coming from Davos and being involved in all of the things around the Sustainable Development Goals, that you can take 2 points of view if you want to, but I'd like to take the one that most of you have taken. If you look at the SDGs, I think it's getting a little bit more understood why we have the SDGs. At a time globally when we seem to have a hard time in global governance, with the SDGs at least, we have a moral framework on how the world should function. And actually more people start to talk about it. It's in more of the vocabulary and it refers to many of the things we're doing. The reality is it will take at the current rate till 2071 to implement these goals, which really have as prime objective to irreversibly eradicate poverty and doing that in a more sustainable and equitable way. That's not how long we can wait. Then you look at the poverty itself, poverty alleviation at the current rate is only in 202 years. I don't want to be part of that. Climate change is still currently projecting to 3.5 degrees, if not more, and I don't have to talk to you about these devastating consequences. The reality is, it's difficult to expect governments to sit together and find all these solutions. They've become global issues at a time that we see nationalism or populism or shrinking back to their own territories. So it's for us to step up. It's an ideal opportunity that we should embrace, that we should cherish, that we should actually feel very good about. Because most of the things happen by citizens' actions, by the right people going together, by taking the initiatives, by putting themselves to the service of others, knowing that by doing so they're better off themselves as well. This is our time. And when things change fast, we have more opportunities actually to participate in that and together figure out what are the right things, provided we all work together for something that is bigger than ourselves. And nothing is bigger, as was said before, than being sure that anybody in this world is being treated with dignity and respect, that anybody has a chance to be equitable in its opportunities. And for us to do that with a higher degree of compassion. The reason I'm so incredibly enthusiastic about the food system from my business perspective or career where I came from is that I, first obviously like Jeremy, I never understood why we designed this system like this. If you come from Mars, it just blows your head. I don't want to go through all the statistics, but it's probably one of the weirdest systems we've designed. I'm actually surprised that we don't see more psychologists in the room that have gotten PhDs out of studying human beings that designed our food system. And then we call ourselves the most intelligent species. It beats me, to be honest. We're killing the earth, we're killing the species, we are obesity on one side, stunting, food waste, we're cutting the forest as if it's nothing, you know. In fact, Gandhi said it well when he said, what we do to the forests of the world is a mere reflection of what we do to ourselves and one another. That's really what is happening currently. So it is bizarre. But I also believe that the longer I've worked on the Sustainable Development Goals, and I had the opportunity to put them together, I really felt that everything that the Sustainable Development Goals is addressing, the 17 goals and 169 targets with its complexities, it all goes back to the food system. That's the climate thing in there, the women's equality, the health and hygiene, not going to bed hungry, you know, land, oceans. You look at any of these goals, it's the food system. So what you are doing here is, you're not just figuring out some of these challenges in the food system. You are actually on a mission, may I say, you're actually on a mission to save humanity. And that's probably the most noble group of people that we have here in Davos working there. Now, if you believe that working at that level and taking on these challenges, it is not going to be easy. It is not going to be a simple solution by turning a key. I can only tell you, in the time that I've been involved in the food, and we decided to put it more horizontally together, and looking now at the reports, the studies, and what is coming out, we've come a long way. And frankly, this year I feel in some respects in Davos, there's somehow a wake-up call. I don't know how much the say-do gap is, because they're always, what you hear is the noise, you don't see the action in Davos. Don't have many farmers in Davos. So, but I see more companies and more organizations than others making bigger and bolder commitments. We have, I'm just going there now, the 1 trillion trees. How do we make that come alive and make it work? I've never seen an initiative of 1 trillion trees. We have Microsoft, the reason is saying, it's not just going forward that I take care of my carbon, I'm actually going to recuperate all the carbon that I emitted since I started my company in 1995. Never seen that. We even have Klaus, our friend Klaus, who invented the web, finally say, may I say, but I always look forward, is like, you know, when you come here, you better sign up to, you know, net zero by 2050 to stay below the 1.5 degrees. These are major commitments. I see the financial market starting to move. The initiatives to decarbonize portfolios now that moved from 2 trillion in September when we were at the UN to 4 trillion in Madrid at the COP25, that are now 7.2 trillion, where investors say, I'm going to align my portfolio to the glide path of 1.5%. All these things were unthinkable even a year ago. I'm not saying that's all that we can now walk away and say, we're there now, we finally found the solution. I'm not saying that. When things go faster, the down forces are starting to wake up and become more vicious. We still have politicians that don't understand that pull us down. We'll probably get some surprises because we're very close in many cases to a negative feedback loop. We're starting to see that happen, with the permafrost melting and the methane being 25 times more potent than the CO2. You know, there's things happening that we not quite understand. We got rid of 65% of the species just in the last 30 years. We're now saying goodbye to another million. We just don't realize what the consequences are of what we're doing, which, to be honest, frightens the dickens out of me, because nobody knows it, and actually too many don't seem to care. But this is why you're here. You cannot save humanity if you don't save nature. Nature doesn't save humanity. We destroy nature, we destroy ourselves. So this mission is an imperative for making the Sustainable Development Goals. If I'm a businessman, I would say thank you very much that you guys have come along. Here you have a system that costs society, by the way, nature gives society about 125 trillion in value, which is not a bad thing. If you can run a business and rely for free, more or less, which it is now, on 25 trillion, thank you very much. But you look at the report, the damages that we now do in the food system is 12 trillion. A damage is an opportunity because someone pays for this damage. And if you turn it around for this opportunity, you see by 2030 already 5.7 trillion being unlocked. For every dollar invested, $15 return. Give me another investment that is better. I challenge any businessman on that. And it's within our reach. I've seen it when I was running Unilever. I see it with other companies that start to get it. And I see it increasingly also in some of the other parts of the SDGs. But it also is clearly the easiest case for me to show. If you don't only buy into the moral case, if you don't only buy into the economic case, then it's also imperative that we do this if we want better health, if we want better environment, if we want better air, if we want better food security. It just touches all of this, and it's at the key of all of this. Now, as we move forward, there is no doubt in my mind that the issues that we have created and that we're trying to solve cannot be solved at the level of the ones that we've created them at. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. It ain't gonna happen. It ain't gonna happen. So if we don't wake up and work differently together, we're not going to solve this. I'm glad we ended with the youth, because this is the moment, this is actually a world where we're starting to live in, where the youth is behaving like adults and the adults are behaving like children. So let's all get together and behave again like adults. And that's why we put the Food and Land Use Coalition together. To listen to all of what we call silos, or people working either at a country level or across these different initiatives, and make 1 + 1 11 by working together. And that takes a little bit of time. There's trust, there's understanding, there's communication. But now is the time to aggregate what we are doing, to look at the total picture that we are very close to getting, and you will see there's an enormous unlock. So my first comment is partnership. Start working on this higher level of partnership, which in essence is putting the interests of the others, which are the people we're trying to solve their lives for, ahead of our own individual interest, and we will all be better off. My second comment is very simply, is the financial market. It is starting to move. If these companies are all going to make commitments to decarbonize their value chain and to be carbon neutral or carbon positive, and that is starting to pick up, which I believe that it is, then we need a carbon market. A carbon market is the best thing that can happen. Because if you want to change the system, we've talked with many on systems change, you need to start making these changes of the system by working in the system, not somewhere outside of the system, because you'll never get there. And this financial lever that is coming in is enormous. So figure that out together, and you'll see some financing flowing into some of the things to accelerate. But at the end of the day, my final point, at the end of the day, the solution is all of us. The definition of courage actually is nothing else than not just to feel uncomfortable, but to nearly be at the point of where you're panicking because you don't have the right answers. If you don't end up as a little bit feeling frantic, that you can't solve it, you're not pushing yourself fast enough or far enough with the challenges that we have. So we need to have, above all, people themselves that are courageous. This world doesn't have a divide anymore between poor and rich. This world doesn't have a divide anymore between north and south. The only divide that we have in this world are a group of people who don't care and others who want to passionately change it. And I know which part I belong or want to be or aspire to be, and I know that's the case for you as well. And we're not letting that be spoiled by the others who think or live in a self-serving part of a world that is not part of ours. I always like to look at little quotes, and I saw Gandhi, and Gandhi said it very simply. He actually said, and this is a wonderful quote that God comes to the hungry in the form of food. Now I believe in God, but I want him to work on many other things. This guy is now, or this woman, whatever God is now incredibly busy to giving food to the people that we don't serve. Let us just serve it and give God this opportunity to perhaps one day unlock humanity in everybody. And that's how we save humanity. And that is what you guys are doing. So thank you very much. Set the bar high, feel uncomfortable, get your targets, work in partnership, and next year we'll have a lot of things to celebrate. Thank you very much.